Hey everybody, it's Putty Elite with another episode of Total Breakdown. This battle is the first in a best of 3 between Rakdos and Diplomatt as they battle in the semi-finals of the Minions of Fortune tournament hosted at Clan Community. The website is a great hub for competitive Total War play, so make sure you head to the link in the description below and check them out. The players in this tournament have to choose one faction as their main through the tournament, with rules to prevent too much duplication. A very interesting rule set, and I like the idea behind two commanders meeting each other multiple times, constantly adapting compositions to each other's from previous battles. It feels like they're actual generals from the factions they represent, so really interesting that way. Now, Rakdos leads the Warriors of Chaos, and Diplomatt brings the Greenskin horde with him. The Warriors of Chaos are led by a Chaos Lord in the air with a Potion of Toughness, while the Chaos Sorcerer of Metal comes flying in with the Transmutation of Lead, Scroll of Power, and Arcane Conduit, and the Exalted Hero comes flying in without potions or abilities. 3 units of Chaos Marauders, 2 ranked up to rank 2, will act as fodder and hope to hold a line against low-tier Greenskin units, while the 2 units of Chaos Marauders with great weapons will provide similar support while armor-piercing. 4 units of Forsaken can act as pseudo-cavalry with their high speed and will cause a great deal of damage, especially when Frenzy is active. They can be used anywhere along the front line or to flank, and the 2 armored Chaos Trolls will bring a lot of armor-piercing pain to the field. Ranking them up to rank 2 helps counter their otherwise pitiful leadership. Finally, some Chaos Spawn come in for their high damage output and their ability to toss infantry around. There's a decent balance of armor-piercing and non-armor-piercing strength there, so I think the expectation was a Savage Orc build with minimal armored support. No anti-large is a bad move against the typical Greenskin army though. The Greenskins are led by an Orc Warboss on Boarback with the Potion of Foolhardiness, the Potion of Toughness, Foe Seeker, Stand Your Ground, and Wah. The Goblin Big Boss rides in on a wolf without any added abilities or potions, and the Night Goblin Shaman brings Sneaky Stealin', Sneaky Stabbin', Itchy Nuisance, Gorkle Fixit, and the Scroll of Power. Then we've got the 2 units of Savage Orcs, the 8 Peak Loonies, 2 units of Savage Orc Biggins, and the Black Orcs who form an infantry contingent that brings a little bit of everything from armor piercing to anti-large and poison damage. They're supported by Goblin Archers and the Rusty Errors, the latter being an especially good pick against typically armored opponents like the Warriors of Chaos, and the cavalry consists of Goblin Wolf Riders, Goblin Spider Riders, and the Orc Boar Boy Biggins. Wolf Riders are great for flanking, while the Spider Riders and Orc Boar Boy Biggins can work great together to take care of most enemy large units with the poison and armor piercing and anti-large capabilities between them. Finally, the Trolls bring in some serious armor-piercing capabilities, and ranking them up to rank 5 helps counter their low leadership. With the longest introduction ever out of the way, let's see how this battle breaks down. Alright, as always, we're going to start with a conversation about layout, and it's relatively simple from both sides over here, so we're going to start with the Warriors of Chaos, of course. We have this front line consisting of the Forsaken forming the center, with the Chaos Marauders on either side. So I guess the idea is to try and pin any incoming flanking units, hold them down, bog them in place while the Forsaken form the bulk of the front. Then we have right behind that front line the Chaos Marauders with great weapons on either flank, supporting these Chaos Marauders with their own armor-piercing capabilities to try and help them wherever they might be. And then down the middle in the center here, we have the Armored Trolls as well as the Chaos Spawn as well. And again, these guys able to just punch through the front line, punch through the center, and cause a tremendous amount of damage, armor piercing and not, but either way, a lot of pain to be brought in here. Then, right at the back here, you'll see we've got this other unit of Chaos Marauders, sort of guarding the back, I suppose, again, able to pin down any incoming large units, hold them in place so that these Marauders with great weapons are able to come in and tackle them, or the Chaos Lord or the Sorcerer, Exalted Hero are able to do the same, who are, of course, all 3 of them up in the air at the back, and again, able to dive in and provide support wherever and however necessary. Now, the Greenskins, again, relatively simple over here as well. It's a little messy as they have been given their first move order, but the front line consisted of course, all the infantry. We had the Savage Orcs on either end. Then down the middle, we had the Savage Orc Biggins, the 8 Peak Loonies, only marked as Night Goblins for some reason here, the Black Orcs, and then the Savage Orc Biggins as well on either side. So, relatively weak on either flank and a lot stronger down the middle with the Night Goblins or the 8 Peak Loonies a little weak themselves as well. So an interesting sort of checker box, if you will, pattern, and the Black Orcs obviously providing a great deal of strength, whereas the HP Cloonies will have their poison to provide some support there as well. So an interesting layout there, and right behind them we did have the Rusty Errors, which I hope I'm pronouncing correctly this time, and the Goblin Archers obviously able to provide that range support. The Trolls were right behind that front line, able to dive in and pummel and cause that damage, and the Orc War Boss as well as the Goblin Big Boss in the center here, Night Goblin Shaman as well, catching up a little bit, and all the way at the back, we did have two contingents of Orc Boar Boy Biggins alongside their Forest Goblin Spider Rider counterparts. So again, these guys are able to work really well together because of their the poison brought in by the Spider Riders and the anti-large and armor piercing brought in by the Orc Boar Boy Biggins. Any sort of large enemy unit can be pretty quickly taken care of with this combination. And they are kept apart so that they can move in either direction to respond, or of course they can collect themselves and push in one direction if necessary. Then at the same time, all the way at the wings, at the far flanks, we had these units of the Goblin Wolf Riders. Again, they are very fast, so they're able to sort of push in and come in from the side and set themselves up for a flanking maneuver. They can cause a fair deal of stress among the enemy army. He now has to think about these potential flanking threats that are coming in. Does he focus on them? Does he split the army up, allowing the center to push forward? Or does he sort of push on down and allow the Wolf Riders to come in from the flank? So a good maneuver there, sort of getting them out there, increasing tension right from the get-go for the Warriors of Chaos. Now, with all that said, let's kick it up to full speed and see how this all plays out. Now, at first, the Warriors of Chaos do push forward, and you'll have noticed the Greenskins were adjusting. A little bit of adjustment going on here as the Orc War Boss and the Goblin Big Boss push a little bit further into the front to provide that support as these guys come charging in. And on either side, you'll see the Goblin Wolf Riders are pushing in, committing to that flanking maneuver, trying to get in to the rears and the sides. Meanwhile, the Exalted Hero, the Chaos Sorcerer of Metal, and the Chaos Lord all staying up back there, again, able to shield and protect the rear lines of the Warriors of Chaos from these imminent flanking maneuvers that are coming in. You'll notice now all the charges are going down. The various units are being sent forward to try and shut down the flanks and the center as quickly as possible. Obviously, these Night Goblins are not visible to 8 Cloonies, but it's pretty obvious that there must be something there, so I don't think the Warriors of Chaos are too surprised when they do get revealed. And you'll notice as this is happening, at the same time, these Wolf Riders are still being sent around. They are still being used to, again, create some tension, force the Warriors of Chaos to think about what's happening in their rear lines, and potentially break their formation. So far, they've maintained it, though, of course, as the charges are being sent in. And at this point, you'll see the Rusty Errors do start opening fire, and the target selection is quite good. Now, over here, the Goblin Archers are firing as well. That's perfectly fine. I'm more focused on the armor sundering capabilities of the Rusty Errors. Now, you'll notice this first volley does go into the Forsaken, and instantly it reduces their armor quite significantly, pulling it down to 45 from a 75 default. And that's a good call because these guys are all sort of rushing towards this right flank as seen from the Warriors of Chaos perspective, so just trying to reduce their capabilities nice and early and cause a little bit of physical damage as well. Meanwhile, over here you'll see the Goblin Wolf Riders are being pushed in from the flank. They're able to sort of tuck in, maybe hit the Marauders, maybe dive into the Chaos Marauders up here when the charges go in, but you'll notice the Chaos Marauders with great weapons are instantly sent back to respond. Meanwhile, over here you'll see the Orc Boar Boy Biggins giving a strong head-first charge into the Forsaken here. They're not braced or anything, not that it would make a difference, so the charge is going to toss them around a little bit and do a fair amount of damage. So good call there, just pushing them through the front lines and getting this early damage in before pulling them away almost instantaneously. And at this point, you'll see the Rusty Errors actually open shots off at the Chaos Trolls, who are armored. So great call there again, just switching the target really quickly, spreading that armor sundering love, if you will, and a little bit of those shots do dive into the Forsaken here as well, so again reducing their armor before this engagement even begins. So great movement there. And over here you'll see the Wolf Riders sort of standing still as the Chaos Marauders with great weapons are giving chase, and over here these Wolf Riders able to come around, obviously from the rear, able to get that charge in. Now at the front here you'll notice the Chaos Lord does dive into combat, getting some hurt into these Savage Orc Biggins. A little risky because obviously these guys are anti-large, and we do also have the Orc Boar Boy Biggins coming in, also anti-large, so a very risky spot to be in. And meanwhile, the Chaos Sorcerer of Metal does dive in as well against these Black Orcs, who are also fighting against the Forsaken. Meanwhile, the Chaos Spawn here coming in as well to get that extra damage, the extra hurt coming in. You'll notice also we do have Transmutation of Lead going down on this right flank, again as seen from the Warriors of Chaos, and that's a great call. This flank, the Warriors of Chaos have been slightly weakened on this flank, and so in response, Transmutation of Lead does go down, reducing weapon damage and melee attack amidst the enemy, so good movement there. And back here, you'll notice now the Wolf Riders are being pulled away. On having seen the Chaos Marauders giving chase, the Wolf Riders are now being pulled away to try and keep them safe and alive for longer. Meanwhile, over here, you'll see these Wolf Riders are being pushed in further, committing them even more because the Chaos Marauders here are not responding. Meanwhile, at the front here, you'll see this first unit of Forsaken has taken a fair amount of damage between the armor sundering, that charge coming in from the Orc Boarboy Biggins, and an otherwise unfortunate engagement. These guys have taken a fair amount of damage. Now we'll kick back into full speed. You'll see the front lines have all engaged, and over here the Chaos Lord is getting trapped by these Orc Boarboy Biggins, so not a good spot to be in. And over here as well, you'll see these Savage Orc Biggins getting hurt quite bad with the Forsaken hitting them while they're under the influence of Transmutation of Lead, so not able to get as much damage out as they are taking. Over here, meanwhile, you'll see the Orc Boarboy Biggins being sent in to charge into these Chaos Marauders. They are able to cause a little bit of damage onto these Savage Orcs. Of course, they did come in from the side, so they are helping the Forsaken out here, but the Orc Boarboy Biggins come in, quick response, trying to take care of them as quickly as possible. Meanwhile, on the other flank over here, you'll notice these Savage Orcs are pummeling the Chaos Marauders. The Marauders don't really stand a chance on their own. They do need assistance. They don't have it here, so without causing too much damage to the Savage Orcs, they are taking a lot of pain in return. Meanwhile, over here, though, you'll see the Savage Orc Biggins are being terrified off between the Forsaken and the Chaos Trolls with armor, and of course the Chaos Lord being right back there, causing fear and terror. Very, very easy to dismantle their will to fight and get them scared. Meanwhile, over here, you'll notice we do have Itchy Nuisance go down on the Forsaken, so there's going to be an interesting bit of movement here. So as Itchy Nuisance goes down, you'll notice these Forsaken actually get ordered back. They get pulled away, and that's a great call. We don't see that kind of management very often because basically what happened was the weapon damage and melee attack of these Forsaken was reduced significantly. They're barely getting any damage in, while the Savage Orc Biggins and the Forest Goblin Spider Riders are at full capability. They're able to get a lot of hurt done. So by pulling these Forsaken back, they're actually not taking damage without giving any back. So good little bit of micromanagement. They're seeing Itchy Nuisance go down and keeping these Forsaken safe. Meanwhile, over here, you'll see the Goblin Wolf Riders had come in, and the Chaos Marauders were sent to respond and pin those Wolf Riders in place, so that the Chaos Marauders with great weapons were able to come in and cause a fair amount of damage. And unfortunately, they're not able to cleanly retreat either. They are taking a lot of hurt. Meanwhile, the other unit of Goblin Wolf Riders off in the distance, very safe, very sound, not taking too many risks back there. Unfortunately, you will see the Warriors of Chaos are suffering quite badly on this left flank. You'll see this unit of Forsaken here being very quickly taken care of, and this unit of Marauders, as we mentioned earlier, basically a non-issue here. The Rusty Errors on the other flank, meanwhile, continue to try and provide some support, firing into these Chaos Trolls with armor, again, hoping to help these Savage Orcs and these Orc Boarboy Biggins against this large contingent. They are very scary, these Chaos Trolls, especially when they're armored, so the armor sundering there doing a lot of work. The Chaos Sorcerer of Metal, however, able to dive in and interrupt some of that support and doing just that, going in finally to try and take care of some of that range support. And you'll notice the Goblin Archers as well not really being taken care of, which is a bit of a mistake here. Range fire can make a lot of, can cause a lot of damage to morale and to health, so it's a good idea to try and shut that down as quickly as possible. So you will notice the Rusty Errors finally do get a hit. The Chaos Sorcerer of Metal trying to take care of them, try to scare them off, try and at least prevent their fire from coming in. And you'll notice here the Forsaken, who were pulled back once Itchy Nuisance went down. As soon as Itchy Nuisance died off, once again being sent in to attack these Savage Orc Biggins, and they will make pretty quick work of these Savage Orc Biggins, especially if the Chaos Sorcerer of Metal decides to provide support. So good little bit of micromanagement there, as I said earlier, and you'll see this unit of Goblin Wolf Riders now still alive, pulled away, able to get away and off to the side here, while these Chaos Marauders with great weapons give chase, and these regular Chaos Marauders push into the front to try and provide some support to this very important frontline engagement. Unfortunately, the Chaos Trolls with armor now, with armor sundering slowly running out, they are able to continue their engagement without taking as much damage, and you'll see the Savage Orcs over here very quickly giving up, and the Orc Boarboy Biggins as well, not really having the best of times in this engagement, with the Forsaken and the Chaos Marauders. Again, together they can cause a fair bit of damage, and of course the Chaos Trolls are doing a lot of work as well. Over here, you'll see the Chaos Sorcerer of Metal is providing support to the front line, so these Savage Orc Biggins are having a terrible time. They're very quickly being taken care of, while the Goblin Archers here are opening shots, it looks like, at the Chaos Lord, who is currently using the Potion of Toughness to just replenish some of that health and give a little bit of defensive buff. Now would be a great time to try and come in from the rear here and dive into the backs here, or try and chase after these guys to shut them down more permanently, or even sort of dive in here, get rid of this flank nice and early, or, of course, push into the Rusty Errors, because they will pull back and continue to provide that ranged armor sundering support. Up here, you'll see the Chaos Marauders with great weapons still giving chase to the Goblin Wolf Riders, so good job. They're not giving them the freedom to move around. Unfortunately, these guys have that freedom that this other unit was denied. And you'll notice as well, the Goblin Archers continue to open shots off, trying to get some damage into, it looks like, the Chaos Trolls here. Not going to do as much work, of course, because they are armored, but still a good idea to try and hurt some of their leadership. You'll notice as well these Chaos Marauders with great weapons dive into these Savage Orcs, so they will do a great deal of damage there. Try and take care of them nice and early, well, nice and quickly, I should say, rather. And meanwhile, over here, you'll see the Chaos Sorcerer of Metal is diving in to the Rusty Errors as well, once more, to try and cause that damage, to try and shut them down. Now, over here, the Goblin Wolf Riders are needing to be very careful against the Forsaken, who, again, are pretty fast, so they have to kind of dodge and make sure they don't get bogged down, they don't get shut down, but they do need to get a good charge in, and they need to get that charge in quickly. They either need to dive in here, get a rear charge, help these Savage Orcs, or dive in here, possibly scare off this unit of Chaos Trolls with their armor, or, you know, the Forsaken here are already routing. These Chaos Marauders could use a good hit to shut them down. Maybe push in here, get a decent charge. A lot of options, but of course you need to be very careful not to get shut down by these Forsaken, who are, of course, relatively fast. They're not as fast as Wolf Riders, but relatively fast, and of course very easy to get sandwiched in this situation. Also, great cast here by the Chaos Sorcerer of Metal. You'll notice the location was right in the middle here, so the all of these Greenskin units are hit by the Transmutation of Lead, as were the Goblin Big Boss and the Orc War Boss, who were kind of located in the center here. They weren't engaged at the time, but of course it was very likely that they would dive in soon, so that cast location was great, just making sure these guys were all hit. But of course these guys do sort of dive out of that cast radius, and now they're no longer affected by it, but still, good thinking back there. Meanwhile, on this flank over here, again, the right flank, as seen from the Warriors of Chaos, has been hit by Itchy Nuisance once more, but this time it's not really worthwhile to retreat. The momentum is on the side of the Warriors of Chaos, so it's very good to sort of push in, make sure those Rusty Errors aren't able to continue firing, aren't able to pull back and open shots off again. So now is a good chance to push in and take care of this entire flank. But back here you'll see the Orc Boarboy Biggins, the Savage Orcs, and the Goblin Wolf Riders are all being sent in as well, and they need to be sent in quickly to try and take care and manage that, again, right flank as seen from the Chaos perspective. You'll notice in the center the Warriors of Chaos are suffering quite heavily despite the magical support. The Marauders really don't stand a chance. The Chaos Trolls as well taking a lot of damage between the poison coming in from the 8-peak loonies and the armor piercing from the Black Orcs. They are taking a lot of hurt. Over here, though, the Savage Orcs are getting quite badly damaged by the Forsaken and the Chaos Marauders with great weapons, and the Forest Goblin Spider Riders do dive in, but the Chaos Marauders now are going to get a rear charge as well. The Chaos Lord, however, taking a lot of hurt, being very heftily damaged between the Forest Goblin Spider Riders under the influence of Wah and Stand Your Ground, helping their melee defense and melee attack, and the Orc War Boss as well as the Goblin Big Boss. So a lot of damage being done there, and you'll see the Chaos Lord routing, not willing to fight anymore, doing his best to stay and fight, but just completely outnumbered and outclassed, taken care of. Over here as well, you'll see the Chaos Sorcerer of Metal, also made to rout, completely shattered. The Orc Boarboy Biggins did a great job of following him around as he was damaged, as he was low on health and routing, so completely shattered him. So a lot of the leadership has been destroyed from the Warriors of Chaos, and you'll notice they very quickly start falling apart as the Rusty Arrows continue to fire into the Trolls, causing them to shatter. One more shatter over there, and finally a close defeat for the Warriors of Chaos. Now, there was some great micromanagement in this battle to shut down flanking maneuvers and to try and target ideal enemy units with stat-damaging abilities, such as the armor sundering afforded by the Rusty Errors. The Warriors of Chaos were entirely unprepared for such a large cavalry contingent on the other side of the field, and most of their units were too weakly armored to take on the Greenskin without dropping like flies. Now, as always, guys, make sure you subscribe to this channel for more Total War content and keep submitting your battle replays. Said it many times, I think it's one of the best ways to learn, and it's always nice to see great battles from the community. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you on the battlefield.